Hello, welcome to the April 19th, 2024 Club Cubase live stream. My name is Greg Undo and I'm the host of the live stream today. If you've not attended a live stream before, how it works is you can ask questions in the live chat field, or questions can be submitted in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. When asking questions, if you could specify which version of Cubase you're running, whether it's Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro, what version number, such as 11, 12, or 13. Also, the operating system, whether you're running on Windows or Mac OS, that information is helpful. We should have my ability to answer all the questions in real time will soon be eclipsed. I'll spend the entire live stream trying to catch up. But if you don't see an immediate response to your questions, if we could avoid asking the same questions over and over again, that would be appreciated. That allows us to get through more questions instead of me reading the same question over and over. So just realize that you can put it in a list and we'll go through them chronologically. We should have an index of all topics that are covered in the live stream today pinned to the top of the comments field with timestamps, so you could quickly navigate. And if you wanted to search for topics that have been covered in previous live streams, it's over 32,000. You could go to cubaseindex.com, and we want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating such a wonderful site where you can just kind of type a question in and search, and it will immediately take you to a live stream where we've talked about it if we've covered it. We also want to give special thanks to Agent K and Jazz Dude, who serve as moderators. They're not Steinberg employees. They just do this to make it a better community experience. And we'll give a special kudos to Jazz Dude for his efforts with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord. So it's not an official Steinberg entity, but it's a wonderful resource of information for the Steinberg community. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I work for Yamaha Corporation of America. I primarily focus on Steinberg products, and I'm the host today. I'm presenting from just outside of Washington, D.C. area in Alexandria, Virginia. And if you're watching live, please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from. One quick programming note, I will be traveling next week and will be in meetings during our normal live stream time. So we won't have a live stream on Tuesday, but we will have resume our normal schedule back on Friday. So I'll be returning home Thursday night from my trip, and we will have our next live stream will be 1 week from today. So no live stream next Tuesday. We'll just be doing 1 week from today. So just a quick heads up with that. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our questions. Carlo asks, when I put several effects on an instrument or sampler track, for example, an EQ, delay, chorus, and I automate something from all these three effects, how to organize it below the chosen track. So it could matter if it is going to be a send effect or an insert effect. So if I come, let's say I go to my sampler track here, and let's just see if I have. All right, so let's say as I wanted to add EQ and effects on this particular sampler track. So if we have it as so let's say I put a delay on here, we'll just. And let's put an EQ, and we want to kind of automate these parameter changes. And let's get to a send effect. So let's say I have a reverb here. All right, so if I go to automate a particular sound, so let's say I play this, and I'm going to go ahead and just record. I'll take this off, and I'll record parts here. And I'm going to place the track into record enable, or to write enable, sorry. So now as I come here, I could adjust my delay time. let's automate my EQ. Now if I go to automate my send, so let's say if I come here, and if we choose, now if it's a send, we would just click here on our send amount. So we could adjust our parameters in the send, but my send level. Alright, so now I've recorded all that nonsensical musical information. Let's look where all the automation has come up. So I had a preference. So when you go to your automation panel, so if you hit F6, which is the default key command, and go to settings, you could say reveal parameters on right. So we can see that on the sampler track itself, we recorded the MIDI information. We can see that our EQ, the sync rate, our EQ changes, as well as our RoomWorks level were all completely automated. We can see the EQ frequencies, so we can see those changes on the inserts, the levels on this end. So everything that was automated on the channel itself will open up directly below the channel. And then we'll probably see, when we go to our effects channel, where we have our RoomWorks. Let's just may have it. All right, so we go to our RoomWorks channel. We select that. Then we could see the parameters of the RoomWorks, because this is on an effects channel, so we're automating the contents of the parameters on an effects channel will go on the effects channel. Within the inserts, that would go directly to the track itself, and the send levels would automatically, so when we adjust the amount of the send, that's going to be within the particular track, so everything will kind of show up as being organized there. If you want, one quick way to come over here is, we could, when we go to open up your automation and we choose our different parameters, we could see which ones actually have the automation if we clicked in this list. But another method to see all the automation of parameters that have automation, so you're not seeing automation lanes for where there's no automation, again, is to go to your F6 or just click right here to the right of the word where it probably just says touch by default. And if you go to the item here, you could say show used, and then that way you could see all of the used automation tracks. So everything will be within the particular track, except for if you're using an effects channel, then the automation would go within the effects channel, because that's where that effect is actually living. All right, so we see Music for World Peace Records has to drop these questions and run. Who's going to watch the replay? All right, and this first question is, in Cubase 12.06, some of my drum sounds in the loop browser are not previewing. How can I hear them when I drag them into the project, but could cause this on some files and not others? So one, if you're dealing with, different loops, so let's say if we're doing this, so sometimes you may deal with loops, and let's say, okay, I'm looking for a beat. So if you see like this little icon here, which looks like a loop with like a 5-pin DIN MIDI cable, so say if I go to my drum beats here, you may not notice that these will preview, because this has to load up the instrument for it to preview. So this may take longer than other sounds. But if it's going to be straight audio, so let's say if I come here and I want to preview my drums, I'll just put these on autoplay. So let's just say preview. So that as soon as So I'm just going to do an autoplay. So as soon as I come right over here, we can see these different events. But again, if it's a MIDI loop, so you may have to wait a little bit for the MIDI loop to preview. So check to make sure that it's actually that they're all audio, and you could see just kind of by looking at the particular contents. So we can see that these are MIDI loops by the icon. But if we go to our drum loops where we see the audio waveform, that would indicate that these are going to be audio and should automatically be previewed instantly. All right. Music for World Peace Records also asks, in Download Assistant, how do I know which files are included with Cubase 12 and which are premium content? All right, so how you can tell what is included with your license is, once you enter the Steinberg activation, the Steinberg Download Assistant, and I'll just open this up, and you go to My Products. Once you click on your Cubase 12, that will show you all of the products that are licensed within Cubase 12. So I'll get mine open and we'll show this. So after you've entered your download access code, I'll say, okay, I have Cubase Pro. Let's say we have Cubase Pro 12. And when I click here on my product downloads, all of these products here within Cubase 12, these are all licensed with your Cubase 12. If you have Cubase 13, these are all the products that are licensed with your Cubase 13. So you can see other, like all of the different Steinberg titles and content here, but again, if you just want to see what you're licensed, go to My Product Download, select here, and then you could see all the licenses that are available to use. There's other license, like if we go to Sounds and Loops, there's other licenses available here. But if you don't have those particular licenses, you can install them, and then when you go to use them, people get upset because they don't work. But just select, go to your My Product Download, select your Cubase Pro 12, and you'll see all this content is what comes with your Cubase Pro 12. And if you purchased additional content, they will all show up directly here in the Steinberg Download Assistant. All right, get my computer wake up here. Okay, next question from Eric Sampson says, hi, Eric's from Paris here. Is it possible to move a project to a different location by just dragging and dropping the project folder in Windows File Manager? So yes, if and this is assuming that you have all the project, all the content for that project within that folder, and you chose not to have content outside of that folder. So, and one of the things that could mess that up is a preference. So if you check to see if you go to editing to audio, that you have on import audio files, that it'll copy all the files to the project folder. If that's checked, you're in good shape. You could also check just to verify by going into your media menu to the pool window. And this shows all of the files that are used in the particular project, and you can make sure that these are all in the same path. And then if that's the case, you could copy the entire project from one hard disk or one location to another location. And once you open up that project, it will automatically look within the folder structure to open the project as expected. If you had it in an old location and you go to open it from recent projects, you may get an error message saying, because this is looking probably in the original location, but if you just open from If you go to File to Open and direct it and open it from the new location, you won't have any problems. All right, so Carlo asks how to put titles on the timeline so that I know which part is going to be played. So I'm not sure if you want to put like markers on when you say titles on the timeline. So if we wanted to, you know, if it's like an audio file, we could drag and drop the audio file directly into our timeline. If we wanted to do like where we see titles, such as like a text description, there's probably two ways to do this. One is to add a marker track. So we'll call this titles. And we could come right over here and just say, okay, I want to just grab and I could hold down the control command plus the control command plus the shift key and drag across, and then we can say, give it a name. We can make a cycle marker. So we can say this title, this is song 2, and this will automatically open up the naming field for us. And then we just come right over here, just say, if we want to drop markers while holding down a shift key, we can say we can put a position marker or a cycle marker. So if we just want to name a marker as we drop it in, just hold down the shift key and you could type a marker, or if we want to put a cycle marker, it would be control or command plus shift, and then you could drop cycle markers in like so. So let me know if that's the titles that you want to see. So you could do it, and you could also enter the text in the description field from the info line as well. All right, Eric Sampson asks, is it possible to rename a project folder from the Windows File Manager? So you could do that, but you know, realize that if you go to open it from the recents list, that it may look in the wrong folder. But once you have the project opened, it doesn't really matter what the name is, as long as the folder hierarchy, kind of the folder structure, is consistent. And it says, okay, within this folder we have the project folder, and it's going to look in the audio files folder, the audio folder for the audio files. So it doesn't really, you can rename the project file folder whatever you want. It's just when you open up the project, at that point the project will look for an audio files folder at the same level. So you shouldn't have any problems. All right, question. Is there a way to see the most recently installed plugins, i.e. sorting plugins by installation/update date? So there's nothing within Cubase that would allow you to look into VST plugin manager. So here we could sort by manufacturer or category, but it doesn't allow us to view by date. And I don't think that here we did, you know, and the date of installation isn't really seem to be a searchable field for Cubase, so you would have to perhaps search at your Windows or Mac OS levels to see when the plugins were installed, but there's nothing in Cubase to differentiate between the dates of when plugins were installed. All right, question. Would it be possible to add project history on the left inspector, like on the mixing console? That way we'd have a unified history tab in both project and console views. I will add that as a feature request. So if you're not familiar with that, if we go to your edit history, here we can see our edit history here that we could go back and undo. But I guess you'd want to see maybe the edit history here on the tracks. And as was mentioned, if we do this in the mix console, and I've moved a bunch of tracks and done all sorts of horrible edits, that there is a history tab here that we could just simply go back to. So for consistency's sake, so I'll pass that along as a feature request. It's a good idea, thanks. Okay, so we see from Carlo asks, when I type Control plus D, the copied part is unique. How to copy melody parts so they are not unique. So I guess maybe this is like a shared copy. All right. So let's say I have an event here. I'll just snap this to grid real quick. All right, and I'll just write in. All right, no, sorry, let me just. Okay, so let's say I have this. All right, so when I take this particular event, I'll make it just a little more obvious here. Okay, so we have this event, and when we do a duplicate command, we could just come over, and as I make a change here, like let's say I delete these notes, it's only happening on that one particular event. But if we wanted to do perhaps a different method, so what I would do is hold down the Shift key and go to, instead of using Control D or Command D, is hold down the Shift key, and if you go to the edge, the center edge here, we can make what we call a shared copy. So now if I make a change in one of the edits here, I'll delete some notes. Sorry, let me just. So we delete notes here. Those notes will be deleted in all of the other copies. And I think if we just, let's see if I hold down, let's see, Command Shift. So just come here and drag across. And then when you see like almost like equal signs here, this indicates that these are shared copies. Another method, if you wanted to do this using a keyboard shortcut, so let's say, well, is you could hit Control or Command plus K and say I want to copy that 4 times, and once you do that, you could just make sure that shared copies is turned on, so that now when I come and delete notes, those will be deleted and those will be shared copies. Now, if we've done all sorts of horrible edits and we don't necessarily want, so as I add these notes in, but if I wanted this one to be independent instead of a shared copy, I would go to my edit menu, to functions, and say convert to real copy. And now when I make a change here, this will be independent. And when I make a change in a grouped copy here, a shared copy, then those would be carried over to the other ones. And we can see again if it's a shared copy just by seeing the equal sign in the upper right hand corner. Right, Uno Memento from Finland asks, what was the setup to create a reference track to a control room? I've done it, but I don't remember exactly. Okay, so let's take a look at it. All right, use Wonderful Song by Seventh Crossing. Okay, so when we want to have a reference track, you know, sometimes people have all sorts of very expensive hardware to do this, but it's really easy in Cubase using the control room, because what we're going to do is basically utilize a headphone or Q mix as kind of like an alternate mix. So if I wanted this track to be a reference track, what I want to do is we'll open up the channel editor, and I'm going to set its output to no bus, and we're going to go to the Q send, and I'm going to say let's come to the Q send, and I want this to go out to a Q send. Now if you don't see Q sends that are active, what we do is go to your audio connections, make sure your control room is active, turned on, right click, and you can see and add a Q send. So what this is going to do, and why we want to send this to kind of an alternate path, is as we work, we don't, if we have effects that are on our master bus, such as like say frequency EQ or different compression, we don't want the reference track to be going through the processing on the master bus. So we want this to be completely independent. So we're going to take this track that we have, and again, set it to no output, and send it to the control room bus. And I'm going to EQ this one just annoyingly different. So let's say we do this. All right. So as we play this back, I'm going to listen to the track, and I'm going to use the control room to switch back and forth. So right now we're going to hear every track. So now I'm going to go to Q Mix 1. And now we're hearing the reference track. And now I could listen to the mix internally and just switch to Q Mix 1 in the control room. And now we're listening to our reference track. So that's our mix, and this is the reference track. So if I put on the mix, let's say something obnoxious like a flanger, we're not hearing it on the reference track because we're monitoring it at a different source. We go back to our mix, now we hear the flanger, but not on this track. So this is our reference, and this could be our mix. So route it to a different Q mix and then switch between the main mix and the Q mix. And that's how you could utilize the control room for references. All right, wonderful to see Jan on from Cubase Index. All right, we have Minac Banerjee saying hi. Thanks for joining us today. All right, we have Val checking in from Vienna. So glad you can make it today. And we see Minac is running Cubase 13 Pro on Windows. All right, so question, how can I transfer channel strip settings from one track to another? Windows 11, Cubase 13. Okay, so let's come over here. Just jump back to a different project. All right, so there's probably two different approaches to this. Okay, so we'll come over here. I'll just activate some channel strip settings. All right, so one is to just come over here and say, okay, I want to save the channel strip preset. So we can say, okay, I want to name this Val. I go to the next track, and then we could just come over here, and when we go to our channel strip settings, we can say let's load a strip preset, and then we could do it just like that. Another method, so let's say we are on channel 5 here. I could right click and we could say copy the first channel settings, and this would do all the channel settings, and then we could paste the settings to the selected track. So when we jump over here, all the settings are automatically carried over as well. So a couple of different approaches. So you could save it as a channel strip preset, which is always good to have libraries of as you're working on projects. Or just kind of copy and paste the particular settings by kind of right clicking on the track, copy these and paste it to other selected channels. All right, so we have Linus Kaminskas on Cubase 13.02 Windows 10 Pro. We see Robbie Bowling from Dallas, Texas. We have Nima saying hi. We have Martin joining us, running Cubase 13 on Windows 10. We have Arif B sending greetings from the Netherlands. Spa Dogs, great to see you from Canada, outside of Toronto. All right, we see Minac Banerjee. Please tell how to batch export effects tracks like reverb, delays, etc., along with audio tracks into individual tracks. Okay. So I'll just switch to a different project where this might be a little easier to see. Okay, so I want all of my drums. I'll send these to a reverb. Okay, and now we'll play this, and there should be too much reverb on drums. And I want my guitars to go through a delay. Okay, so now we list it. All right, so now we want to do, I'll just do a small portion of the file. So we want to export the reverbs and delays as their own track. So we would go to Export, Audio Mix Down, select Multiple. We can now see I want the effects channels and the individual tracks. And we're going to export these. We will, I'll just create new audio tracks within the same project. So we'll say export. All right, so as we've done this, we could see that we have our mono delay laid out for us right here. So we can see all of our different, this is our drum verb. So if we want to I'll just solo the drum verb track. So this is just a reverb. Now when we come here, let's say to our kick, this will be dry. And if we add the drum verb in. So once again, all you have to do is once you get to your file, to export to audio mix down, just make sure that your effects channels are included, and then each of the effects returns will automatically be rendered as their own independent tracks. All right. See, Val just says, hey, Greg, did you get any info on the specification of Magneto 2? Not the exact machine yet, so I'm still trying to get to the person. So, but I'll reach out again. All right, we have Nima just saying, nice to meet y'all. So, and we have Dallas LaRue from Las Vegas. Great to see you. John Costigan from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Both very loyal attendees. We have Mr. Dali67 from Denmark. Trond from Norway. Glad you could join us. All right, Kim Gabbery asks, hello, Greg. Could you please tell me if there are any keyboard shortcuts or macros that could rearrange tracks by moving them up or down or send them directly to the top or bottom of the list? So I think, you know, what you could do, so let's say I wanted to do something like this, and I wanted to move this track like to the top of the tracks. Okay, so I think an easy way to approach this, and I know there isn't like a keyboard shortcut that I know of just to move tracks up or down. We can move events up and down by using nudge. So what I would do is maybe select, let's say the top track here. So let's say I want to select this track and this track. So maybe I'm going to select the top track. I would go to the configuration view here. So let's say we just say I want to show only show selected tracks. Then you could move up the particular track. So let's say I want to, I'll just show all tracks. So I want to move this track up to the top, and let me just switch to divide track list function here. All right, so let's say I have my marker track at the top. And and I have this track and the top track selected. So if we come to the configuration view, you could say, okay, show selected tracks. Then I can move that one track and then just conversely show all tracks. And now I could have that at the top or in a different place. So I know it's a bit of a left-handed approach, but try selecting, you know, like the top track and the track that you want. Go to show, and so to have those tracks selected, go to show selected tracks. You could flip the order and then show all tracks, and that's a way that you won't have to scroll up if you have, like, you know, 200 tracks in your project. I think we'll see improvements coming along those lines maybe in the future. I know people have been asking for it for a while to make it a little more straightforward, but you could give that a try, Kim. All right. So you see that maybe Uno Momento might be getting snow coming from the east. All right. So we see from RFB question, for example, I use a stab with reverb. Can I let the reverb noise go on sidechain? Thanks in advance. So yeah, let's say if we wanted to have let's see if we could find so if we have, like, you know, this you know, going to so we have our drums are still going into our drum verb. So if we wanted to, on the drum verb itself, we could, on the effects channel, you could just put a compressor, and then you could sidechain that compressor from another channel. So you say, okay, I want the kick to be the compressor for that. So, but let me know if that's what you want to do. But you can use the a compressor before the reverb if you wanted to do different ducking and sidechain functions. But let me know if I didn't understand that question correctly. Jazz Dudes, give a reminder that the current Steinberg promotion is going to be ending April 28th. So make sure everyone who's a Cubase 13 user could get 6 additional titles, 5 or 6 titles, free of charge, and 30% discount on updating to Cubase 13 or purchasing Cubase 13. You see from Linus Kamiskas, by the way, Cubase is getting unstoppable. It's great. All right, so we have Soren checking in from Sweden. All right, the Garfy guy asks, Cubase isn't creating a hit point for every note in one of my instrument tracks. The threshold is 0%, but it's still not picking everything up. What can I do? Okay, so let's say if I'm here, so there's a couple of different things. So let's say if we're looking at our hit points. All right, so, you know, we can see that we have lots of hit points here, but also realize that, you know, there's going to be the intensity, and that you could, you know, play with the intensity. So if it's not picking everything up, and if it's not picking up, you know, a hit point that you would expect, I think if we just grab, let me just, that you could manually add hit points in as well. So let's say, if we're here, just but check to make sure that you have the intensity, because usually people often say just catches too much, so we had the threshold rate that we could adjust, but also you could use the intensity and use that as more of kind of the intensity of the kind of dynamic approach, and then you could adjust that as well. So but so give play around with the intensity as well as the threshold, and realize that if there's notes like in if I look that the hit points are going to be more kind of attack based as well. So depending upon a part, if you have long sustained of notes, that you depending on the material, so it's basically going to look at it for like transients, but but try playing around with the particular intensity setting as well. All right, so Carlo just confirms, says yes, Greg, I want to put markers on the timeline, so that's good. Iron Lung Production says, hey, I didn't know you guys live streamed. Are you working on a personal project or demonstrating something? So generally with the live streams, what we do is people ask questions and we answer questions for 4 hours. So it's usually not an agenda of like doing a demonstration on a particular thing. And we do the live streams. We've done them twice a week for over 4 years now, usually lasting about 4 hours a session. So just straight questions and answers, Q&A. All right, so we see from Parabot2 says, I sent a question into Club Cubase. I'm not 100% sure it made it. I've had some email issues. Should I repost it? You could definitely repost, but I think I got your email earlier. So, but if you want to just ask a question, we usually do the emailed questions toward the end. So. All right, so we see from Diamond District Studios, this is 77 people watching, only 31 likes. Says, thank you, Greg and Steinberg. Always for these sessions. Love from Cape Town, South Africa. All right, so Igor Garcia says, hi, Greg and the sampler. Is there a way to play notes until the end of the sample once you've hopped, or I guess once you've chopped the samples into slices and assigned it to different notes, it only plays until the next slice. So yeah, once you've, sliced a particular loop, it's basically assigning each part of the sample to each slice. So it's going to then, trigger the different slices. So we'll see if we can show it here quickly. So let's say I have my sampler control open. So we do this, and now when I play my sampler, we could do that. Now, what I think, what you might be able to do, let's give this a try. So let's say I want this to play. All right, and I'm gonna go to my B setting here. And what I want to do in my B setting is, let's see if I could do the slices only in B. So now we can, but let's see if I jump back to A, I can just play the sample full through. But if I wanted to deal with the slices all you'd have to do is switch from A to B. And so I could play this without any slices and play B sliced up, and you could just simply switch back and forth on the sampler track if you wanted to be sliced or not. But once you've sliced it, this is mapping each of those particular slices to different keys. Let me clear my throat. So let me know if that's helpful for you. All right, so we see from Soren says, I need a 7-week grace period for a free upgrade to VST Live 2 Pro. Normally the grace period is 6 weeks. Greg, I'm out of luck, right? So yeah, generally the policy is 6 weeks, but I think isn't the upgrade price like $20 or something? You could try to reach out to the Steinberg support and see if they'll help you out. It can't hurt to ask, but if you don't get it, but it's generally 6 weeks from release. So wonderful to see Jeff Zabelski from Chico, California back. Great to have you back on the live stream. All right, hello Cubase 13 Pro user. Which stock compressor is closer to an SSL bus comp for mastering, and which is an 1176 style? So I would definitely kind of play around with, so most people wouldn't use a SSL bus compressor for mastering, but the ones I would definitely check out, and these may not, definitely check out Black Valve. That's a new one. If you're going to be doing more kind of vintage vibes, I would definitely check out, if you go to the vintage compressor, you could probably figure out which one that might be. Also, if you wanted to go to the tube compressor, so if you're looking for more vintage vibes, you could do that. But I think if you play with the Black Valve here, that will get you some amazing kind of bus compression results as well. So I'll put that on the rock track so you could hear it. This is a lot of people's new favorite. So, lots of great options there to play around with. But I think between those three, you're going to be in great shape. All right, so we have Saxo Official says, hello family from Africa, SL. All right, we have Alex B sending greetings from Ukraine and France. Jazzy Lamel sending his greetings from New Jersey. Rob Boddick is on. So glad he can make it. Michael Teams has arrived from Weatherford, Texas. So virtual ice cream distribution will begin. Tim K is glad to be joining once again from Zeist in the Netherlands. Michael Teams wants people to whack the like button. And Dollhouse Studios wants people to saturate the like button. All right. You see Jeff Zabelski is button thumb up 35. All right, so next just says, hi Greg, is there a way of setting which enables auto change on duplicate events when I edit on one event? So I think we may have showed this a little earlier with the MIDI. So if we come over, so let's say if I have this MIDI pattern, and I'll just convert it to something where you can see it a little easier. Okay, so again, if I go to the right edge and hold down the shift key, we can see that these are linked. So if I make changes in one of the parts, that those changes are applied in the other parts because they're shared copies. And again, to do that, you could hit, so once we have it selected, we could hit Control or Command K and have shared copies. Or if we hold down, we go here, hold down the Alt key and then the Shift key, we can make shared copies as we drag. Or if we drag straight across while holding down the Shift key, we could do shared copies like that. So let me know if that's what you want to do with that. Changing duplicate events when I edit one event. That's from next. All right, my chat field just jumped. All right, Structure D&B says, hi Greg, thanks for getting me started a few weeks ago. I have another question. I want to add some effects to some drum loops. When I add the effects, it changes all the drum loops. Just want to change one. Okay. Okay, so this could be, so say I have this drum loop repeated a couple times. Okay, so we listen to our drum loop here, and I want to put an effect on one of the drum loops. So we come here, and now we repeat. So what I want to do is put an effect on this drum loop. So if I now come over here, right, there's going to be a preference for this. So we'll go to Editing to Audio, and we'll choose to on Processing Shared Clips. And this is like one of those little windows that you can say, don't show me again when it pops up. Here we can say create new version. So I'm going to, without this checked, if I come over and let's apply a reverb to this, so we'll go to Audio to Processes, or Audio to Plugins. And we'll say, let's go to our reverbs. So we'll say, okay, we'll go to the RoomWorks. So now we've applied that reverb. When I hit play, instead of the reverb just being on this selected event, it's playing on all of the events because they're all the same audio file. It's the same audio file that's been repeated. So once we process the underlying audio file, that file will, if we process that file and that file is repeated, that repeat will include the processing. So once we go to your preferences, and again, editing to audio, and we choose to create new version, and I'll click apply. When I do a plugin, So we'll add the reverb again. So now as we play, the first one will be dry. This one will be processed because it wrote a new audio file. And these ones that weren't selected will be dry. So what you want to do, again, if this is what you're running into, go to Preferences, Editing Audio, and choose to create new version. So let me know if that's helpful. Okay. Let me find next question. All right. So see, Trond is happy with his ice cream gift from Michael Teams. All right, so we see Val, did you get my question by email about the folder visualization? Thanks as always, Greg. So why don't you just ask it again? I thought I saw it come through, but then when I was looking, when I copied the was copying the questions over, I'm not sure if I got that one. So please feel free to ask the question again, Val, so we can get your question answered for you. Okay, Dylan M. DeRosa asks, hi Greg, is it possible to get a sound source in the sampler track to align to a downbeat, i.e. a riser that will play for 4 bars and sync to the downbeat of the next bar? Okay, so let's say we have something, let me just... Okay, so let's say we have something like this. I'll set my pitch bend range here. All right, so. Okay, is it possible to get a sound source and sampler track to align to downbeat, i.e. a riser that will play for 4 bars in sync to the downbeat? So I'm not sure if you want this to... So let's say if we want this to start at, we have like our downbeat at measure 9. So let's say I want to take measure 6 to 7. And let's see. All right, let me just... Okay, so let's say I wanted to do... All right, so say we just want to draw in pitch bend event here. All right, so let's say we wanted it at measure 9. So let's say if we just listen to this, and let's say, and let me just actually just make that riser here. So kill that node. All right, so you just see sound source and sampler track to align to a downbeat or riser. That will play 4 bars in sync. All right, so let's say we have this going for 3 bars. Let's say we just have. And then if we just drop like the next note in here, it will extend the event here. But let's say we want that. Have that rise and then go back. Just so I'm not sure if this is kind of what you want to do within a sampler track, so we can have it build up and do. And then just kind of play back. So I'm not sure if if it's just the MIDI note that's aligned to the downbeat that's playing back through the sampler track, if that's what you want it to do. But maybe if you give some more information, let me know if I'm kind of on the right path to answer your question for you, Dylan. All right, and Luis Alejo asks, "Hi Greg, thanks for the streams. My questions is, how do you make straight lines for pitch bends in MIDI? The draw tool has steps. Live play can have errors, just so you want to tweak. So when we go to kind of your settings here, let's see if it's, but as you just saw, when I would draw in pitch bend, that, let me just extend the length of the part here. So, if we want to use the line tool, so let's just use kind of like straight line tool, and then you could just see straight lines kind of just like that for your pitch bend data. So let me know, instead of using kind of the pencil tool, and here I'll turn off my snap to pitch. So if we draw in kind of the pencil tool, may not be as accurate as using the line tool. So the line tool, I can say, okay, let's just make that particular straight line. So let me know if that's helpful for you. So again, maybe just instead of using the pencil tool, just use the line tool, and then you could also draw in other shapes as necessary. Okay, so we see the Garfy guy says, "Thank you, Greg," with a big heart. So you're welcome. All right, Calencia Lonut asks, "Hello, sir. I have a question. If I import a song in Cubase and Cubase sounds more faster, what is the problem?" So generally, when I get that description, it's generally going to be a sample rate mismatch. So it could be, if the file is faster, maybe your sample rate is at 44.1, but the sample that you dropped in is at 48K. So try going to your project menu to project setup, where you could hit Shift plus the letter S, and make sure that the sample rate of the file is matching the project. So it's probably, if it's playing back too fast, probably your project is at 44.1, the audio file is at 48K. So You probably have sounds like a classic sample rate mismatch. Dylan M. DeRosa asks, is it possible to layer 2 or more sound sources on a sampler track? So currently the sampler track is designed for 1 source, but what you can do is, let's say we have a sampler track here, and if we wanted to have more sounds and we've kind of started, is we see these little 3 arrows here, we could just choose to transfer to Groove Agent SE. And now we've transferred it into Groove Agent SE. At this point, we could have 32 different sources layered on one pad or one particular note. And if we wanted to just spread that out through different ones, let's say we want to take, we'll just start brand new. Let's say we'll come here to our sampler. So we have this as our sampler track. All right, so we will hit the correct 3 arrows. So we're going to transfer this to Groove Agent SE. And then what I could do is just go to pitch, and we'll say, okay, I want to set my pitch range. Our root key's at C3, so I want this to play back from C2. And we'll say through C4. And now, and if we wanted to drag and drop other sounds in, we could do that. And once we come over here to main, instead of switching between some noxious sample, anyway. And instead of switching between what we do is just choose to layer the 2 different sounds. So as we drag and drop samples in, we could come over here and we have multiple sounds all on the same pad, and then all we would have to do is choose, we could see to play them via different velocity settings, or we could just layer, and you could have up to 32 elements stacked together. Okay, so Martin just says they're streaming Dutch VariAudio Premium. So, but I don't speak German, so I wish I did. So sorry about that. All right, Algis asks, marker track does not have find by name option, or has it? All right, so let's just take a look. Okay, so I'll just type in some words. Okay, so let's see if all right, so let's hit Control M and see if we could search for marker names. All right, so, but what I think we can do, so let's say we're going to create a new marker named Algis. All right, we're going to take this marker, give it a description, and all right, so for Algis. Okay, so I think we can use the Project Logical Editor. So let's say we would just want to come over here and we want to select marker, and then we could say name contains, it's not a traditional search function, but if you're, so say name contains, right, so no markers are selected, so now I could just come right there and select a marker based on name. So it's not a search function per se, but you can pretty easily create a project logical editor to do that. So let me know if that's helpful. So once again, we could say select media type is equal to marker, name contains, and then type in the name, and then you could have that marker selected. So again, if we wanted to look at that, we'll just run that. So no markers are selected. Then you could select by marker name. All right, so you see from Igor Garcia, thanks very much, great explanation. All right, wonderful to see Suede TV saying hi to the room. All right, Drano Corleone asks, what happened to the click volume / listen level, listen enable in the control room in Cubase 13? So let's go take a look. So I think it's still there. So let's say we have our click track going on, turn it on. So let's get to the control room. So if you don't see it, it could be that they're kind of underneath. So we can see our click track that we could turn on and off here. And if we wanted to set our click level, we could just, but it may not be visible. You might have to just click on the main title bar to bring up the other controls for your volume levels. So let me know if that's helpful for you, but we could just turn it on and now adjust your click level or panning like so. Okay, wonderful to see Gareth Kitch on from Bilbao, España. Glad you can make it. Okay, so Yazian asks, could you show us how to convert Steinberg software to a full original version? So I'm not sure what isn't a full original version from what you have, but generally there's no, when you have a Steinberg license, you have the full original version. So let me know, maybe if you could rephrase your question, I'll try to help you out. All right, my chat just jumped on me. All right. See, Jazz Dude is explaining how German speakers can find German tutorials. So that's great. All right, so we're just see Nick joining from Essex in the UK. Wishing everyone's had a great week. All right, Josh asks how to unshare shared copies. Okay. So once we have a shared copy, so I'm going to come over here, hold down the shift key, drag it across. So all we would have to do how to unshare a copy is go to edit, to functions, and we'll see convert to real copy. So we'll see where the white equal signs is. Once we do that, that is This will have the equal sign, but this one will not. So how to unlink or unshare a copy to make it function independently for edits is Edit menu, Functions, Convert to Real Copy. You may see that grayed out until you have something that can be converted actually selected, etc. Michael Teams asks, howdy Greg, sometimes I don't have the handles for fade in, fade out on a track to edit. What changed on a track to cause this, or how to remedy this issue? Okay, so this often happens when we have audio that was glued together. So let's say I take this event and we can see my fade handles. I make a copy here and I put a little space and I put a little space here. Now these are our events, and if we want, let's say where we often run into this is now we glue events together, and when we glue an event together, it's created a part, and we could think of a part as a collection of events. But when we do this, we don't see our handles appear, but when we double click instead of the sample editor, this takes us into a part editor where we could see the handles come back. So if you run into that scenario and you want to do your edits here, select the part, go to your audio menu, and you'll see dissolve part, and now you could turn them back into events where all of your fade handles will be readily apparent. Okay, Robotic asks, is it possible to use VST effects on an audio input while playing an instrument? So yes, all you have to do is as you're recording, and this will be for inputs, so this may not work for a virtual instrument track, but we have something called input channels. So once we are here, we can see this red channel, and this will correlate with our audio connections and what we have set as our input tab. So if I want to add a mono bus, we see it added right here. So if we want to record with effects and have those effects embedded into the recording, kind of burned in to the recording, we could just play effects right here. So if I wanted to always play with the guitar amp simulator, I'll just come right over here. Let's open up the VST amp rack. And now we could record the sound, and the sound of the plugin will be embedded into the recording. If you're doing this with a virtual instrument, since the virtual instrument is already inside of Cubase, it's not going to be burned in, because unless you are routing it out and back in, so that could be a bit of a left-handed approach, but I don't think you need to do it as much. But if you wanted to embed the effects, you want to do it on the input channels, and then those will permanently be applied to the track. Okay. Okay, so we see Agent K getting ice cream from Michael Teams, 1 Gallon Rocky Road. All right, Minac Banjuri asks, if I have an audio track with 2 sends like reverb and delay, then please, how can I batch export the audio track and its effects tracks, reverb and delay? Okay. All right, so we'll just start brand new. This is one of the free library sets you get with the current promotion if you have Cubase 13. Just all right, so we have our guitar, and let's add delay and reverb to this guitar, and we want to then export. So let's come right over here. Let's add an effects channel track. So we'll add our we'll add a mono delay. We'll make it like a dotted quarter. And let's add an effects track for our reverb. All right, so we have reverb and delay. So I'm going to come over. Let's do our. I'll just select, put my left right locators around an event. Let's get to File, to Export Audio Mixdown. We're going to choose multiple. I'm going to put these into the same project so we can see the results. We're going to now, we will see our effects channels. I'm going to select both my effects channels and my source track. So we'll say Export Audio. And as we do this, we have our guitar, the delays, and the reverb. So if we want to, we'll solo just the dry guitar here. So we have, let's say, just our guitar here. Now so that's our delay, the reverb, and the raw guitar part. So again, we have our raw guitar. This is just a reverb. Now adding the delay to the original and all together. So delay by itself, reverb by itself. So once again, go to File, Export, and when you do your audio mixdown, choose your effects and your guitar, and your effects tracks will be rendered independently as their own tracks. All right, we see Jeff Zabelski says, Steinberg just took my money for Cubase 13 upgrade. So I think it was a great investment that you made in your future music production. So. All right, so Val's question on folders was, when my folder is open, I see small preview inside of its track, but when I close it, it's not there anymore. Is it possible to have it shown even when the folder is closed? Thanks. All right, so let's take a look at it. All right, so I have these in a folder. We can see the contents here. All right, so I think if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be Event display folders. Okay. Okay. So check this setting. So say hide data when expanded. Okay, so now, okay, so it doesn't show that folder there. Let me just make sure. Okay. So now the preview isn't there. So let me just get to preferences. And we'll say always show data. So I'm not sure if you want to see the waveforms in there. So I guess. So let me know if that is helping you out, Val. So let's say never show data. And we could have always show data, and we could say show event details. If we don't want to see the event details, but that will kind of, once the folder is closed, so let me know if that's helpful for you, Val. So we see Gareth just says boom, and Michael Team says, now that is cool. I wish I knew what I was doing. All right, so we see from Ali Al Zaire, my friend had issue with Hub. Instead of it, the legacy list style appears when starting Cubase Pro 13. Is there any solution to keep only Hub style? So I think that when we come here, so let's say we do like a new project or when you're starting. So the reason why the Hub has kind of changed, and is probably on the Windows platform, I assume, is that we went to follow the kind of Windows multi-window standards. So, and it could be that people could close all of their windows, could close all the, when you're working with multiple projects open, that people could close all the windows and then not be able to quit Cubase. So that's why the Hub will appear, so that even if all windows are closed, that you could exit the program directly from within the Hub, so that there is a window available to quit the program. Otherwise, all the projects could be closed because each project is now a multi-window compliant Windows standard. So we didn't want people to close their projects and not be able to close, which is why the Hub, will pop up and behave a little differently in 13. All right, so we see some discussion on the sampler tracks about the pitch bend, how I was drawing that in, and that can be made Bezier. So let's take a look. I'm pretty sure it can be. So let's say if we add sampler track, once you kind of at a point, then you can then you could do your Bezier curves within your pitch bend window as well. So Bezier curves on the pitch bend. All right, we see from Luis Alejo, it says, for the pitch bend tool, question of mine, I'm using Cubase 9.5. It doesn't have that sharp line. It must be an upgrade of newer Cubase releases. Thanks for the answer. So I still think that the line tool will still work. It may not snap to particular pitch values, but you should have the line tool that's been in Cubase since, I think, Atari time. All right, Suede TV asks, thanks for your help. For best results in parallel compression, what is the difference between adding a duplicate track and processing that track as any other alternative way to achieve the results? So some people will duplicate a track and compress one of the tracks and, not compress the original and playing back at the same time. So I think that gets you to the same result at the end. Some people will be very particular about the signal routing and that the signal be sent. So we'll show this just on our drums here. So if you wanted to do, sidechaining on multiple tracks, that's when using the sidechaining would work well. So let's remove this track. So let's say I want to take all of my drums and do sidechaining on the drums here, or parallel processing. So I'm going to now come over here. Let's just add 2 buses. Make them stereo in, stereo out. All right, I'll just add in our bus here. Sorry. Add a group. Okay, so at this point, there's a couple different ways to approach it. Some people may not want to use aux sends. So if we want to go into kind of our big mixer, we could go to direct routing. So I want to take all of my drum tracks here. And I will send it to drum. And let's send it to drum parallel. And I'm going to enable my quick link on this. So drum and drum parallel. Okay, so now when we do this, we're not altering the actual levels. So we're just kind of sending it all out at the same level when we're using our quick controls. And we'll go to our settings, and let's just make sure that we have direct routing summing mode is on. So now as we play, all my drums can be going out to my, so all my drums are now going out to my 2 different groups. So this way we could easily blend the two sources together. So let's come over here. I'll put on the black valve and I'll just so now as our drums are I could just dial this in. And sometimes people also like to EQ their parallel. Maybe boost the highs. And then you can bring that down a little bit. So doing this method gives you a little more flexibility because you could extend other processing like EQ and adjust the levels kind of independently as well. So if we were to bypass this group, so while you could do it other ways, I think that, you know, sending it to two different groups gives you a little more flexibility with the processing that you're doing on the groups as well. Yes, and I think Suede TV had sent just an email. I accidentally responded to the wrong email address and says, oh, you worked at Unique. It was at Bobby Nathan's place. So yeah, it was Bobby and Joanne Nathan's studio. So it's a lot of fun. All right, so we see Luis Alejo just says it's a bummer that in Cubase 9.5 you didn't have the pitch bend semitone options and the lines are steppy and not precise at all. Thought I was missing some options. So, you know, make sure when you're doing the lines, you should have straight lines, but you might have to adjust your grid. So let's say if I was in a MIDI part, I'll just add a MIDI track just to show you this. You should be able to get straight lines, but the steps, you know, were added later. So I think it was one of the things Zed had wanted really badly in his Cubase, so we provided it for him. But make sure that when you're drawing in that, you know, let's say if you're seeing that you said it's very kind of staircasey when you draw stuff in. So if I have my snap turned on, you may notice that when we go to draw in with our pencil tool, that you know, it may be try turning your snap on or off, but again, make sure that you have your line tool because you could just come right over there and just, so you can't do that. That came later as well, but you know, consider upgrading. 30% off sale right now. So, you know, because probably your Cubase 9.5 is 2017 or so it's probably 7 years old. See, the Heartbreak Time Machine says that drag and drop groove agent sample layering is a highly underrated feature. And Heartbreak Time Machine says also he has smashed the like button. Thank you for doing that. All right, so we have Borden Grote joining from Southeast Michigan. All right, so we have Algus that says, thank you, Greg. I think that was with the question about finding markers. So Ken Coleman asks, will Cubase Pro 12 projects seamlessly open in 13? So yeah, I mean, you could go back to Cubase SX1 in 2002 or Nuendo projects in 2000, and those projects will seamlessly open, so no problems there. My chat field just jumped on me. Okay, so we see Good Doc says, I think for Cubase 14 we need something like Suno AI, but it should create a complete Cubase project instead of bad quality songs. So, well, what would be the fun of that, really? So, anyway, so. All right, Yasin says, I have to buy an older version from 2016. Is there a way to update to Cubase 13? So, yeah, I think going back to Cubase 6, let's take a look that you could upgrade. So let's see where the cutoff is quickly. All right. So you go back to Cubase 4. So that was 2005 or so. So 2004, 2005-ish. So yeah, you could just upgrade it, and that's on sale. So if you want to do that, like in the US, it's $139.99. So it's currently on sale until April 28th. So check that out. Worth doing, I think. Jazzy Lamel asks, hey Greg, is there a way to automatically assign certain colors to my audio tracks and group tracks by certain colors? All right, so let's just add, we'll do new project. And I'm going to change a preference here real quick so we have no colors. I'm going to add some group tracks. Okay, so we have no colors on our tracks. So let's say I want audio tracks to be one color, groups another. So let me switch my preference back so I get it back. Okay, so we'll go to our Project Logical Editor. So we want to transform, and we're going to say media type, we'll say track, and we'll say container type is equal to, media type is equal to audio. So let's see if this is, okay, so we're going to take our audio tracks and we're going to choose transform. And we're going to say set color. So we can say set to fixed color. So I want my audio tracks to be orange. I want my group tracks. So again, transform. Container type is track equal to group. I want this to be, my group tracks to be green. And effects tracks. So transform. Container type is track. Media type is equal to effect. And we want our effect tracks to be kind of purplish. So you could assign different types of tracks to different colors like that. And if you wanted to assign the fader caps to those, what you could do is go to the preferences, and you'll see mix console fader colors. And then here's where you could say, okay, I want my, VCA fader to be green. So we could just kind of change different color types. So when we go to add a VCA fader in our mix console, we could change the fader cap colors as well. So let's say if I'm here and let's add a VCA fader to the selected, we can see that the fader cap is green. So if you want to change the fader caps, we can just come over again into the preferences, user interface, mix console fader colors, and you could adjust those. All right. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Jazzy Lamel. We see thanks, Greg, from Josh. All right, Jav and Kona says, hi, Greg, a little late, but finally get to watch your stream again. Hope everything is all right. So doing great here. And we're glad you can make it. And the only thing if you're tardy is you have to immediately hit the like button. All right, so we see Michael Team says, thanks, Greg, perfect. So I think that was why on the event handles. All right, good Doc asks, in VariAudio I have the problem that I have to position the mouse a little bit more on the right side instead of on the handle of the VariAudio segment. Has someone else had that problem? All right, so I'll close this. All right, so let's say jump over here. So I haven't run into that. The one thing I would check is to make sure that your display drivers, if you're on Windows, I have seen like some people that, as they're working, if something like seems like a little misaligned, it could be like, the high DPI settings on their particular video display. So, but check if you go to preferences, check to see if you go to the general tab, if you're on Windows, if you turn off high DPI or the scaling, and see if you have the same behavior. But sometimes it could be a display driver that's causing something to be misaligned, but everything seems to function as expected for me on my system, my PC and my Mac system. All right, Darren Flake says, hi, Greg. Happy Friday. So thanks for joining us on the live stream today. All right, so Jazzy Lamel says, hey, Greg, does a 30% off work for Wavelab? So this current promotion is just Cubase, but there was a Wavelab promotion like 2 months ago. So there should be, the promotions cycle in and out constantly. So there was prior to during the Wavelab promotion, everyone wanted a Cubase, and during Cubase, promotion, people want Wavelab. So. All right, wonderful to see David M. from Liverpool on. And we also see Brian Sawyer Sr. from Beulahville, North Carolina. Okay, great to see Tim Weinheimer. Just says thanks for all the help. We see that Michael Teams has granted John Costigan 1 gallon of butter pecan ice cream. Okay, Gareth just says time for some like smashing. All right, so we see from JB, how would one go about contacting Steinberg to request our recommended or recommend a feature? So I think if you go to the actual, the official, kind of the Steinberg.net forums, that there is a feature request area there. You know, they do, you know, and if you want to pass it along to me, I pass along lots of feature requests as well. You could send it to me at clubcubase@steinberg.de, and then I'd be happy to pass it on. All right, so we have Pastoral Apologetics from Southeast Texas in the house. Thanks for joining today. Okay, all right, so we see from Dimitri, says Cubase 13 crashes on startup, nearly loading hub. How can I fix it? So it could be that there's a problematic plugin or something that's causing it. What I would do is to try to see if you temporarily disable the program preferences. So what you could do is I'll just open up new window to give you an idea. So if you hold down on the Windows platform, Alt Control Shift, or Command Option Shift on the Mac platform. So what you're going to do is start the program, then hold those 3 keys down. So just start it. You see kind of the icon starts. I'm holding those keys down. And then it should take you into a safe mode for startup. See if you can disable the program preferences, or you could deactivate all third-party plugins and then see if it will start up. If it starts up, you know, you could try just the third-party plugins, and if it starts up, then you know that it's going to be a third-party plugin, and you might have to just kind of figure out which plugin is causing the issue. So 95% of the time it's going to be like a third-party plugin that's causing it. But so again, start the program, hold down Alt Control Shift or Command Option Shift, depending which operating system you're using, and then try disabling the third-party plugins. If it still acts up, then disable the program preferences from the same window, and that will probably take care of it for you. So. Okay. Okay, Michael Teams wants people to smash the like button, keep this hangout going. Okay, Rodrigue Dasi asks, how do I find a snapshot icon? The one that allows you to save several mix versions. Thanks in advance. So if we go to our mix console here, one of the ways is just to come, if we could see this mix console snapshot right here. So I could now adjust everything. Take a different mix console snapshot. And now if you want to go back to your original, just come right back, recall that snapshot, and go back. So you can see on the lower zone mixer there, if you're in the full F3 mixer, the full screen mixer, you see the snapshot here in the upper left-hand corner. So same functionality. See, Michael Teams and John Costigan are in a race to share their knowledge. All right, so we see from Darren Flake, hi Greg, can we rename plugins on the insert in case of a template creation? So I think it's going to be the same, that the inserts are going to just utilize the same names as what's in the plugin itself. So I don't think that this can be modified because it's actually just taking the name from the plugin. We can do it for sends. So let's say if I think we could do it for sends. So let's say if I want to add an effects channel track, and we will call this Darren, but we're going to send it to the reverb. That now when we go to our sends, we could send it to I'll just come here to this track, and we go to our sends, and then we could send it there. But the inserts themselves are going to retain the name of the plugin that's being used. So I don't think there's a way to change that. See kind words from Graham Witcher, says the live stream will never die. Michael Teams, we have been here for over 4 years now, and there's no other DAW that has what we have got with Cubase. It's all down to Greg. So I'm fortunate that the people I work for are supportive of the live stream, and we have great participation. I think last year alone we had over 2 million hours viewed of live stream content, we had 2 million views and like almost 2.5 million hours viewed of live stream content last year. So it's really it's not down to me, it's up to everyone taking advantage of it. And I think it's a great community, and I'm happy to be a part of. But it's really the whole community that makes it so great and viable. But I advocate for it every day, and a lot of people can't show actual metrics for what they do with their work responsibilities as easily as I can. And I'm just fortunate that, just really feel so fortunate that we're able to offer this as a service to help people use their Cubase better. I mean, what a great thing to do. So. All right, so we see from Luis Alejo, it says, is one able to link images? Is it show that Greg on Cubase 9.5, even with the line tool, which I tried before, the line still has steps in it? So make sure that when you're using the line tool, and I don't have 9.5 installed, but try turning the snap off altogether. So hit the letter J, make sure that snap is turned off, and C. But you could always upgrade your 9.5 to 13. So. All right. So John Koskin was wondering what people's impression of the UAD analog synth was. And that's a freebie, so I think it's usually $99. And so again, if you have Cubase 13, take advantage, and you could get a free copy of the new Universal Audio Synth. All right. Always great to see Ace Amadeus on, and he asks, hi Greg, hope you're doing well. With 12 Pro or Cubase 13, are we able to extract just the drums using spectral layers or another Cubase plugin from a song .wav file? Thanks. So if you have Spectral Layers Pro, you could do this. So I think I created a song so I wouldn't have to So we'll show it to you here. Yeah. So I have one that's kind of already done, so don't have to unmix it for 3 minutes. Okay, so let's say I have this song. All right, so just drums, rock, you know, got drums, guitar, keyboard. So now what I did is I unmixed this already using spectral layers. So if I take just the drums and so here we could take out like our vocals, drums. Let's say piano or bass. So here if I want the drums to be louder in the mix, or they're too loud. So you could just remix your different elements. So yeah, so Spectral Layers Pro, all you'd have to do is just come over here, go to Unmix Song, and then you could do that, and then within the drums you could then unmix kick, snare, and cymbals. So it's not with Cubase. So the version you get with Cubase 12 or 13 is Spectral Layers 1. That will allow you to do the vocals. And what we see with the Spectral Layers Pro is the ability basically to unmix the other instruments. Jeff Sabelski says, horrible waste of time redeeming comp products, signing into websites we may not want to spend any time on searching for Polymax. I like Steinberg because I don't have to deal with all of that crap. So yeah, sometimes going through other companies' processes, you could appreciate your own. So. All right, Elijah Brown asks, hey Greg, under a question. Have a new computer called Toshiba trying to get Cubase. Could you run by on how to get Cubase, please? So really all you have to do is, if we go to the Steinberg website, so if you don't have a copy of it already, you can go to your local dealer, or you could just come right over here, and Cubase is currently on a 30% promotion, so you could come right over here and choose to buy Cubase 13 from the Steinberg site, or directly from a dealer if you want. So you could just come right over here and you could choose whether you want to buy Pro, Elements, or Artist, and you could just buy directly from there. You'll get a code. You'll then download the Steinberg Download Assistant, which we had open earlier, and that code that you get you create a My Steinberg account, and then you'll receive a code in an email if you buy it electronically. At that point, you would enter the code into the Steinberg Download Assistant. So we'll get this open, and you'll see enter your download access code right there, and once you do that, it will pop up in your products list, and then you could just download and activate just like that easily. Congratulations on your new computer, and we hope your new computer is a fan of Cubase as well. All right, so Rodriguez Dasi says, if it doesn't appear, how do I make the appear in the mixer window? So make sure, I think it could be only in Cubase Pro. Might be a Cubase Pro only feature, but if we want to see that, if you don't see it, we'll just take a look really quickly. Let's say we hit F3. Make sure that if you right click at the top, you'll see Mix Console Snapshots. Make sure that that is turned, has a check mark in it. And earlier versions, you may have like a little setup settings, like setup windows. In 13, you could just right click and see the Mix Console Snapshots. But I think it might be a Cubase Pro only feature. So let me know if you're running a Artist or Elements or something like that. All right. Jeff Sabelsky is also reminding people that the free products will expire during your vouchers area of your My Steinberg account. They will expire on April 28th. He says might take a little longer than you think, so do it early. All right, we have Peter checking in from Montreal. Matty Rojas asks, any chance that Cubase will implement something similar to Ableton and Bitwig's modulator for any parameter? What about something similar to Ableton Effects Rack? So I know that there's a lot of people wanting the kind of modulation, like easier modulation. So we'll see what happens with upcoming versions. So, and I'm not sure what the Ableton Effects Rack is. Maybe if you could expand on the benefits, we can see if there's something similar. So, but yeah, we know that there's lots of people, we could do kind of the auto LFOs. It could be a bit convoluted for all parameters. So, but I know Steinberg is aware of the desire of customers to do that. All right, so we have Cubase X on, so great to see you back. All right. Ace Amadeus has received 1 gallon of fresh strawberry ice cream. Sounds great. Okay, we have from Ibrahim Zubadat. Why does Groove Agent, the default one that comes with Cubase 12 Pro, it damages the project for eternity? So let me know how it's damaging the project. I haven't had any problems with the Groove Agent, and people see me run it for years on live streams. But let me know how it's damaging your project for eternity, and let me know if there's like some aspect you're not understanding. If you give a little more information, we can try to help you out. All right, Cubase X asks, Greg, question, when I fire Cubase from any .cpr file, then Cubase tries to load and crashes. If I open Cubase first, then open any CPR file, everything works fine. Any ideas? Tried disabling plugins to no avail. nothing that really comes to mind. I know sometimes file associations, like if you're starting, if you're trying to start the project with, double clicking on a project file, make sure that when you go to, let's say the project file here, let's take a look. So, make sure that when you do this, let me just check, like as you work with this, like that the open width is set correctly for like the default application. So, make sure that this is set maybe not to an older version. So, but, just right click on a .cpr file and make sure that that association is correct as well. So, maybe you're trying to open it in a different level of Cubase. All right, so we see from Darren Flake, question, how to hear saturation in parallel added to a vocal and not the whole FX, just what we're adding. Is it by flipping the phase to hear what we're adding to the signal and not the effects as a whole? Thanks. Okay, so let's say, just open something with okay, so we'll just take this.
Do you recall the day we first met? That was
okay, so you want to how to hear the saturation in parallel added to a vocal, not the whole effects. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to add 2 group channels.
was a long, long time ago.
Okay, so we'll just get to our sends. All right, group 1. Group 2. All right, and we'll set these to 0. Okay.
Do you recall the day we first met? That was a long, long time ago. It was 7th grade in the school parking lot, waiting on our yellow coach to ferry us home. You looked my way and you
Okay, so if we wanted to just hear the saturation, so let's say we have saturation on group 2. We'll just put a little grungealizer on it.
and your heart shone through. It caught my breath while you called me to. Well, even now I'm so in love with you, just like a long, long time ago. Oh, I remember the day that we wed, Seems like a long, long time ago.
All right, so let's say we have...
And our first kiss, there was no regret. Right after that Garth Brooks show.
All right, so we don't have processing on
You
either.
told your daddy and he called my mom. Said you were too damn good for any boy that
So if I just flip the phase, so right now we're not really adding anything.
Soured words are now dead and done. That was a long, long time ago. Now our two grown daughters.
So this is the distortion. So you can, so try on, you know, if you just have the change of what's going on, so it's a, you know, flipping the phase will allow you to isolate.
It was 7th grade in the school parking
So say if we
lot,
just come
waiting
here
on
to
our
this.
yellow coach to ferry us home. You looked my way and your heart shone through.
But that could isolate more of the distortion.
While you called me to.
So you could, you know, try, but, you know, a lot of times you may be adding other effects, but if you're just doing distortion on the parallel bus, you know, to isolate it, just try flipping the phase, and that should isolate those, you know, two frequencies. All right, so as we do this, so we'll just
Waiting on our yellow coach to ferry us home.
all right, so let me just kill those. But yeah, so try.
You looked my way and your heart shone through. It caught my breath while you called me to. Well, even now I'm so in love with you, just like a long, long time ago.
So this is kind of what it's bringing in once you reverse the phase on that. So
Yes, there was no regret right after that.
so try just flipping the phase on the parallel group, and then you should be able to isolate the distortion a bit easier. All right, so we see from Rodrigue, Dasi says, "Yippee, it works. Thanks a lot." All right, so we see from Ariel Andrist, hi, has the multi-output instrument channel inspector display been corrected? I think so. Let's go ahead and just give a shot. Do a new project here, simplify it. Okay, so let's add an instrument track. We'll do Howling and Sonic. Okay, so I'll just load in quick instrument. All right, so we got Rasta sounds. Let's come over here and set mix, and we're going to set this to output 2. All right, let me just check. All right, so let's say this this is going to, and so I have that muted. All right, let me hide my input channels. So I'm not sure if that is showing the out in the all right, so let me just, if we open it up, we set this to out 1 to the main output. So it looks like it might still, I know that there's, I've read some discussion on it, but let me know if that is not set. Assume it's going to be in the routing area, but so I think if we now select here, that now we get apply. So let me know if that makes sense, where you could see, and even though we're now going to output 2, we can now add it through different effects and inserts. So let me know if that makes sense for you, or if that's changed, Ariel. All right, so we see keys for life, how to change resolution for the Cubase window. So it could depend if you're running on, I assume it's the display resolution here. So if you want to do that, Cubase will follow if you're on Mac, it's going to follow the standard resolution. If you're running HDPI on Windows, if you go to preferences, and if you go to general, here you could actually see, and I may see if I have a screenshot of this. But on the Windows platform, you'll see application scaling. Then you could do, you could use the system setting or increase by 50-25%. So check that out and make sure that this is, you could change it right there if you're on Windows. All right, inactive user asks, what's the difference between a bus channel and an effects channel? Can they both be routed as a send? So both could be routed as a send, but I don't think that if we have an effects channel, there used to be some really minor differences, but I don't think, let's say if we add an effects channel, that if this could be used in like a direct output in the mixer. So let me just hide inputs here. So if we go to our direct routing, I guess you could send it to. So they're very similar. I think it used to be in olden, in previous versions that when you went to the channel settings, that if you sent it to a group, let me just add a group here. So both of them can be sent, to group. So say we want to send this to the group as well. And then if we go to panning, it used to be that if we came over here, we could that the panning could be routed. So let me just add an audio track here. So we go to destinations, we could send it to a group or that, but let's come over here to panning. And it used to be that the panning was different, but I don't think it is anymore. Just looking for one quick setting, but there was a way to link. Yeah, so it looks like they both link with the panner as well. So there's really no functional difference between them. There may be like one or two very, very minor things, but very, very similar. Okay. All right, Cubase X says opening CPR files by double clicking. Follow up says it's like going to the doctor. After a week of it misbehaving, it now works fine. Yeah, I've often been accused of being the guy that walks into someone's studio and then their Cubase starts working. So I'm a healer of music technology computers. So, but glad it's working for you. Okay, so thanks for Maddie for the explanation of the Ableton effects racks. So I don't think there's anything like equivalent for that, but there's obviously stuff that you could do with multiple effects chains and each effects end having up to 16 different effects. All right, Jazzy Lamel asks, hey Greg, do you have or use a preferred control surface for your Cubase? So what I have on my desk that I use for control functionalities is a CC121. I have a Choy Sauce 100, so that's just 8 MIDI faders. So really 8 really high quality MIDI faders, nothing fancy, but very simple, does exactly what it should, and a Korg Nano control. And I like having all three of those within arm's reach. They're all fairly small and easy to use and very flexible. Okay. All right, so we see from Pylon Records, says got an AXRU finally. Do you like to record everything through the mic line? Inputs with pad on or off? When the pad is off for synths, drums, etc., the conversion is different. How to use it? So, I think once you're going through, so the only recording I've really done with mine on my XR4U is just my bass. So I generally just go straight in without a pad, and I use the red silk on it, so it has the Rupert Neve silk emulation. I haven't really done recording of synths through it. I tend not to use my hardware synths. My few that I was holding on to, or I still have a bunch, but I haven't really utilized them to record into it yet. So, but I think that maybe when you're going with the pad, and if you're going in line level, that it's not going through the preamp modeling circuitry, so it may sound a little different. So that could be like maybe not utilizing the red and blue silk modeling technology. See, JVI says bonsoir, Greg. Thanks to his live streams, always learn something. So. All right, so we see from Matty Rojas says, I'm considering switching from Ableton, but I use a lot of modulators and effects racks. I also don't know if you can warp automation in a horizontal, vertical, and diagonal way in Cubase as in Ableton. So, yeah, so I think, the modulators, there wouldn't be an equivalent. And, maybe it'll be coming in the future. Never know. So I'm not sure what you mean by warping in horizontal or modulation. So let's say if we have automation, if you want to, we could choose to, if we want to, warp or expand vertically, or if we want to take that automation points and be able to, compress them in time if you wanted to. So if we had it like with a particular event as the automation, we could choose to kind of compress or expand horizontally. But let me know if this is the type of stuff that you want to do as well. So all sorts of cool stuff that you could do with different modulation or different automation sources like so. And even if you want to just come over here and say, okay, we just want to put a sine wave in, we could switch to different drawing tools, change the frequency by holding down the shift key and stuff like that. So if I wanted that to be have more frequency, hold down the shift key, or less, you could do stuff like that as well. So you could change the rate of them. All right, wonderful to see Daniela Tokant from Bochum, Germany. All right, so we see from Sven, it says, do you know isotope tonal balance control or wave CLA mix hub? These tools send data from one instance to others on different channels. Do you know how that works? Will Cubase have something like this too? All right, so we see, by the way, where should we actually send feature requests to? Does Steinberg read those? So yeah, they do, but realize, there's, could be 30 years of feature requests, and sometimes, stuff will, so if you don't see an immediate response, it could be that it's coming in a much bigger themed project later on. So, So I'm not familiar with those two tools. Those are tools that send data from one instance to others on different channels. And do you know how that works? So let me know if it's sending like data from one part to another, or if you're like trying to, because through ARA and spectral layers, one of the things that you could do is something, so I'm not sure if this is a similar concept, but let's say I'm here, I wanted to get snare drums out of my kick. I could come over to here, say, let's go to my extension. So say, okay, we'll do spectral layers on my kick track here. I'll go to my snare track and we'll do spectral layers on this track. Then if you wanted to do something like a de-bleed, what you could do is go to your process, and then we could say, use the snare track as the basis for the de-bleeding. So take out those snare elements that we are found bleeding through in this track. But if you want to give me more detail of like these tools send data from one instance to others on different channels, a lot of that could be done through ARA stuff as well. And you could send a more detailed description to me at clubcubase@steinberg.de, or go to the official Steinberg forum. All right, Spa Dogs asks, is there a way to detect tempo in an audio track in Cubase 13? So yes. Let's do new project. We'll import an audio file. Okay, so let's listen to this and we'll see that it's not going to align with the tempo. So I'm going to select the event and let's go to tempo detection. And now we have our tempo detected audio. So it's basically figuring it out by beats. And we'll place this as kind of like a 1/4. So it's like, you say, okay, this is where our downbeat is, right there at 4/4. So, and then we have our tempo map that's created. Now, if I wanted to make a drum loop fit these tempo changes, so I'll take this and we can just drop that right onto the grid. So we'll just drop that right onto the grid here. Let's hit J to turn snap on. So as this tempo is speeding up, slowing down, now this loop in musical mode will automatically speed up and slow down to match. So yeah, so it's easy to do tempo detection on audio or MIDI recordings. Cubase X calls me the Cubase Whisperer. All right, so we see Ramin Ali. Hello, Greg. After this command, the logical editor position inside bar range, parameter 1, parameter 2, select. You can add something when I select a note. Then I want to select another note I need when I select the second one so that the first one also remains selected. Okay. Okay, so let's... All right, so let's just do... Go here to MIDI Logical Editor. Okay, so let me just enter in some notes. Switch to drum editor here, and we'll put in eighth notes. Okay, so after this command, the logical editor position inside bar range parameter 1, parameter 2, select. You can add something when I select a note, but then I want to select another note. I need to select the second one so the first one also remains selected. Okay, so I think if you want to add, perhaps like if we want to select two notes within a range, so that's what I'm kind of reading it as, maybe two notes at different positions. So let's come over here to the logical editor. Let's go to setup. So let's go ahead and select and we'll say notes. Okay, and here we're going to choose position. Right, make sure I'm following the right, and we'll say inside bar range. Okay, so I'm just going to say we want notes on beat 2. All right, and then I'm going to also say position inside bar range. And we'll say notes around beat 3. And I want this, instead of notes that are around beat 2 and beat 3, instead of that, I want this Boolean condition to be OR. So now, if I did this correctly, we'll say apply. We could select multiple notes within this, so we could add additional parameters. So instead of selecting the first one and then selecting the second one, where that may cancel out the first selection, I'm not sure if you've added multiple selections here and used the OR for the Boolean condition. So we're going to say we want to select notes that are in this position or this position instead of doing it two separate notes. If we say and, it would be a note that's going to be, we want to select notes that are on beat 2 and beat 3. So you may get not as relevant results. So let me know if that's what you want to do, Ramin Ali. All right, so we see Val says a question thinking about upgrading the UR22C to UR816C. My question is, does the 816C has the ability to turn off a high pass filter that's not changeable on the 22C? I think so. I don't have an 816C. So when we come over, let's see if we can take a look at it online. I never got one to play with, unfortunately. So, but let's see if we could see it on the. Let's see if there's. But I think you can. But let me just see if I go on my I have a UR22C. All right, so the high pass filter, when we look at it here, I mean, you could, looks like you could turn it off. This is UR24C, which is very similar to UR22C, but you could turn it off there. And let me just set an audio input. To my UR24C. So we'll come over here now. And set this input. So it looks like Valve on your UR22C, I think that this would be the same, but on my UR24C, you could just turn the high pass filter, turn off the high pass filter right there. So see if I think the UR22C would work similarly. I could definitely see if I could find out about the 816C, but see if that would be helpful for you. But see, because I think you might be able to do it with the UR22C as well. But the 816C obviously has a lot more capabilities and inputs. So we see from Maddie Rojas says that's exactly what I meant about the automation. Thank you. All right. All right, inactive user asks, how can I change the color of my tracks left side where the name is to a less bright color tone? All right, so if you want to, like where the name is here, so I think that there were some changes with that, with the latest preferences. So let's come over here to let's see, track and mix console channel colors. So where we see if it's here on the left hand side, there's a selection brightness. So let's say if I hit apply, we can see that that gets diminished. Apply. So if you want it to be super bright, so you could adjust if this is the track selection that you want. So give that a shot and let me know if that's what you want to do. Okay, so Sven, thanks for the clarification, says about the mix-up question earlier, you basically apply channel strips on several tracks, but can control all of them from one single plugin window. This one instance controls the knobs in the other. Yeah, so I think it could be tricky. So I know that there's a lot of scenarios where, that, having one plug-in window and then whatever the selected track, it kind of takes over. So that could be, I've seen scenarios and gotten questions on live streams where people are confused that they're changing, they accidentally changed parameters on a track that they didn't intend to. So I can see that there's good and bad things about that. I think something that is a good approach to that, especially if you're using MIDI remote stuff, and what Steinberg does is when we go to like the mapping assistant, is you could say for the selected channel, go to this, go to a particular plugin, so at that point we could just come over here and say, okay, on selected track, go to my insert, and then you could choose to, go to, particular and have the same plugin parameters when you go to that track. So, but it could be confusing. I understand kind of the workflow benefits of it, but I've been on the other side when people are like, I did some plugin instantiate it, and then I made adjustments in the wrong track. How do I get it back? So, but thanks for the clarification, Sven. All right, Maddie Rojas asks, last question, does Cubase use less CPU resources than Nuendo? So I think if you have the settings the same projects, that you would find them to be identical. So one isn't going to be heavier than the other. You can do more involved stuff with Nuendo. So, but I think if you ran an apples to apples test running the same project, it would be the same. All right, wonderful to see Michael Pierce on the live stream. Just wishing everyone has had a great week. And he's had saying Olaf from a crazy weathered UK. Okay, Maddie Rojas asks, almost forgot, do you know if there are any plans for adding the old Ableton Rewire feature? So Rewire was done by Propeller Heads. So, we used to use Rewire to, many users would use Rewire to work with, Ableton and Cubase, but Propeller Heads has dropped all support of it, and it's not going to be supporting it on future operating systems, and it's not going to work on Apple M1 processors, so it's Propeller Heads that dropped it. So I don't think we'll see it coming back. So. Okay, Sway TV asks, I added many pictures of third-party instruments in MediaBay Nuendo 13. How and where are these thumbnails saved for future reloading if needed? All right, so I think it's going to be under, it's like kind of a generic, like my pictures. So say we go to documents, then let's see if it is anywhere. But it's kind of like the generic images folder. So let's say if we go to images, that might be one I made. So let's. All right, so I want to say it's going to be it's kind of like the generic this, let's see if we go to like the generic images folder. Let me see if I can find it on my Mac. Let's see if it's maybe under. I think that's all of my user documents, but it's going to be. Just see if I could find it. Okay, so it's going to be under Documents, Steinberg Thumbnails, but let me just see, that's the Windows. So VST Thumbnails, this is kind of the path. So VST Thumbnails, let me just see if I could find on Mac. Okay, looks like the folder here, VST Thumbnails. All right, so here's the ones we made. All right, so it looks like we go to VST Thumbnails. We'll go to. All right, so it looks like it's under Documents, Steinberg, VST Thumbnails on Mac, or this is the path on Windows. So you want to go to your username, Document, Steinberg, VST Thumbnails. Sorry about my brain cramp on that. All right, Daniela Tocan says how to detect tempo in classic music. If the tempo change often, just to mark. So again, you could just use the tempo detection. So let's see if I might have a short classical snippet. But the tempo detection will work on classical stuff as well, so many composers utilize it. All right, so I think it's Mahler second, if memory serves right. So you could do it on classical music that has tempo changes, but yeah, it works great for stuff that has tempo changes going on. All right, wonderful to see Gerald Ely on from Martinez, California. All right, David M asks, Greg, following up from an earlier question, I altered preferences, so MIDI file goes to instrument, example, retrolog, the file goes to a MIDI track. It's easy to move the file, but what am I doing wrong? Okay, so it says, following up from an earlier question, altered. Let me clear my throat real quick. Okay, Altered preferences. So MIDI file goes to the instrument, example retrolog file, goes to a MIDI track. It's easy to move the file, but what am I doing wrong? All right, so let me import. I'm going to change my preference. So this is on importing MIDI files so that they don't immediately go to Howley and Sonic. If you're not, so let's go to our MIDI file, and here I'm going to just choose to instrument tracks. And I think I have a MIDI file that I could import. All right, it's fine. I'm sure I have one in here. Okay, so get some MIDI files in here. Okay, so now it's loaded it to an instrument track. None of the, we'll see if there's any instruments that are loaded up. So we have Howling and Sonic. So this is going to, all right, so you make sure. So let's say I just do it as a MIDI file. So I'm going to change that preference to a MIDI track. All right, let's see if there's. Okay, so we'll come over here to import MIDI file. We'll say no. So here it's just loaded as a MIDI track. So let me just see. It says it gives an instrument example where the file goes to a MIDI track. So try to. So it seemed like when I had the instrument track, it loaded up the instrument track to Howling and Sonic, and I did it to MIDI. So let me know if it worked differently for me, David. So. All right, so Danielle Tocan says with the tempo detection, is their example is 7/8 mixed with waltz. So, you know, when we do a tempo detection, like as we saw, so I don't have any classical pieces that go from 7/8 to a waltz. But what it does is it basically is figuring out what the beats are. And then it gives you a default meter of 1/4, and then you could go in and say, this is our 7/8, this is 3/4, this is 4/4, this is 2/4, 1/4, 5/8. Then you manually put the meters in, because Cubase doesn't want to assume that all your music is in 4/4 time. So the meter you'd have to manually put in, but it's going to figure out the beat. And you insert the meter, which is exactly what you'd want in a scenario with mixed meters. All right, Michael Teams is granted. He says, thanks for all the great help for everybody. 1 gallon of key lime pie ice cream. So This brings back fond memories of being in the Florida Keys on a vacation when I was a kid. All right, so Ramin Ali says, thank you very much, Greg. So Tim K says, playing with the IC Pro app, it's nice on a phone, but it's even nicer on a tablet. Some options, but available split screen, stacked in landscape. Yeah. See, Michael Pierce has been prepping for pre-masters for people all day. Okay, reading through comments. Okay, so we see inactive user, but the left side where the logo is of the audio track, the waveform symbol, can I change that color? Now there's a piano symbol, one in orange, and I want to change that orange square. So if it's kind of looking like this, so let's say where we have this little square here. So if you want to change just that particular color, so let's say we come here, hold down the Alt or Option key, and then you could just drag and use your mouse scroll wheel, or if you click, you could select colors for the track right there, like so. So we have the audio waveform here. If you don't want that orange, you could change the colors just using the mouse scroll wheel while holding down the Alt or Option key. Okay, so we see from Chico Machada Pereira. Hi, I'm using Cubase 13 Pro and working with Novation Launch Key 49 Mark II. Is there a way to do the mapping in a way that all buttons on a Novation work? There's no script for Mark II, only Mark III. I know I could do MIDI mapping, just trying to see if there's an easier way. So anything that transmits MIDI out, you should be able to capture and, make your MIDI remote panel. And then, anything that's, even if it's, if you wanted to assign particular MIDI notes to do functions, so anything that transmits MIDI you can have as part of the MIDI remote. And I know I could do the MIDI mapping, but just trying to see if there's an easier way. So, to assign functions, a lot of times, let's say if I'm here and I just say, I have, I want to open up this button. Let's get to our pre-section. And I can say, I just want to, try right-clicking on the different elements and say, okay, I want to pick up for MIDI mapping. So I have the phase switch here. So I want to come here and pick up for MIDI mapping, hit the button and apply. And now that button, when I press it, is just switching the phase. So you don't have to do a lot of really complex, mapping stuff. You could just kind of right click and say, I'm here on the panning. So let me right click. I'll pick up for MIDI remote mapping. And now I want this knob. Say, let's apply the mapping. Now this knob is doing the panning, and this button can flip the phase or polarity, make Michael Pierce happy, since I know it will irritate him. So, but you could just assign like that. So, but let me know if I'm misunderstanding or missing the point. Okay, inactive user asks, how can I use direct routing to route one bus to two different buses. Okay. So let's come here. I'm going to put, okay, I'll just remove these selected tracks. Let's add an audio track. Okay, we'll make it stereo. And I want this track to go to a, so let's say I'm having this audio track feed a group channel. Okay, so we'll say, all right, and now I want to take, we're going to add 2 group channels. All right, and I'm just going to throw like a test tone generator in so we can see signal on the original audio track. So we'll come here, put a test generator. Make sure we don't totally annoy everyone. We'll make it white noise. All right, so we see that our signal from our audio track is being fed to our track group. Now we'll go into our mixer. And we want to go to our group here. And let's send it to direct routing to group 3. So group 1 is now feeding group 2. And group 1 is now feeding group 3 as well. I'm going to make sure the summing mode is on. So now we can have this track feeding into our group. So let's say this is right. I'll just check the routing here. So we see that this is going to, let's say, our stereo out. Okay, and then once we come over to our direct routing, we could send these out to group 2 and group 3. So this is how this group could be sent to 2 other groups. So once again, just on this group output, make sure that you have on its direct routing that it's being sent to groups 2 and 3. And you probably want to make sure that you have direct routing summing mode on. So if you go over here to the upper right hand corner, you could just turn that on right there. So let me know if that's helpful. So that's how you can route one bus to 2 different buses. Jeff Sabelski, great comment. Tempo detection. Most measures of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring may not work as you'd like it to. Most conductors just use a circular. I don't know the tempo motion at the podium. So as an oboist, you would know that. All right. All right, so we see Chico says, nice, so simple, but did not try to do it. Thanks a lot. All right, we see that Gareth's daughter is fed, so that's good news. Tell Lolo we all say hello. See Danielle Tocan says, had a film director asked to set up, I guess, between 7/8 and 3/4. So all right, Gareth just says Cubase is infinite. All right, so let me jump to some questions that were mailed in. Thanks everyone for all the wonderful questions asked. I hope everyone's learned a new tip or trick. And once again, just a quick reminder Tuesday, there won't be a live stream. I have to go to California for meetings. So we have our corporate kickoff going on Tuesday, so we won't be having a live stream, but we will pick it up the following Friday, and then I think we're up to the end of the month of April 30th. We'll have our Zoom social. So all right, so Michael Pierce just says, how have I only just seen direct routing? It's going to make life 10 times easier. You think you know the basics. No. All right, so let me jump to some of the questions that were mailed in. So Michael Pierce is saying, revelation of the day. All right, let me get to my document here. All right, so we had a question. Every time I launch Cubase, an iLok license pops up telling me my trial for specific plugins has run out. I can't see the plugin in the Cubase plugin list and can't find it in my plugin folder either. What should I do? So sometimes these are kind of outside of what Cubase is. You know, there's still an iLok reference that's going on. I think if you go into the iLok software itself and delete the trial version license there, that will delete the reference. You know, so if you go through your different plugin folders, make sure that it could be that the plugin, even if you only installed the 64-bit or were only using the 64-bit, it may have installed 32-bit versions. It may have installed a VST2 and a VST3 plugin. So look in all those locations to make sure that the plugin is gone from your system, and go in. I think you'd need to go into your iLok license manager and also just delete the plugin from your iLok license manager as well. So I know it's kind of annoying, but it's no settings really in Cubase for that, but you know, try approaching it from your iLok license manager as well. All right, next question. Can I set a MIDI track to have a default MIDI input port when adding a new instrument track? So I guess the question was having a specific port as opposed to the generic in all MIDI input ports. So when we go to add an instrument track, so we come here, so let me just add an instrument track. All right, so we can say, okay, we want to add Hallian Sonic. So generally, a lot of times we may choose to have this be all MIDI inputs. And this is a good fail-safe. You know, if you have like 2 or 3 different MIDI controllers, you could play any of them and they'll all capture the MIDI data. But if you want it a specific, so let's say I have my Panorama P4 MIDI in. So at this point, I want to say we'll add our track. And now my other devices won't transmit. It's only looking for MIDI input from the Panorama P4. So let's go ahead and do a new project. And when we go to add a MIDI track or an instrument track, we could see when we go to add our instrument track, we can see that the Panorama P4 MIDI input is still selected. So this choice will stick until you select a different MIDI input. So while it's not necessarily set as a default MIDI input port where you check default, always go here, the value in the MIDI input port when adding an instrument track, or if you have a different one or the same one for a MIDI track, that will stick and that will persevere, even opening up the project, going to a new project, closing down the program, turning off the computer, turning it back on. That will stick until it's actually changed to another selection. So in essence, if you wanted a specific MIDI device to always be a default MIDI input port, set that as your MIDI input port, and that setting will stick until you change it to be something else. All right, so we had a question. Is there a tab to transient-like function available in Cubase? All right, so we'll show you how. Okay, so when we are here, if we wanted to do all right, so to navigate, what you want to do, I think it's Alt or Option. We'll make it the active project here. So I'll move here. So we can say Alt N. I think it's going to be Alt or Option plus N. So that will take you to the next transient. And if you wanted to go back, you can say Alt or Option plus B. So N for next, B for back. And that's how you could navigate based upon the transients. All right. Hi, Greg. I like how you taught how to set up a reference. What Cubase 13 tools would you use to help match a reference track? A demo would be much appreciated. I guess this might be like sonic EQs, like maybe matching the EQs between different tracks. So let's come over here and just we'll do new project, and we'll take 2 tracks that sound different, and we want them to sound similar. So we could do kind of like an EQ match, and we have built-in kind of EQ match with the curve EQ. So let me import to audio files. Okay, so I'll just set up a quick preference here so we could navigate quickly between those 2. Okay, so let's say these are 2 different EQs, so we'll just go to listen to it here. And if we take this one's much thinner. And we want it to match the tones between this recording. So I'm going to come over here. Let's put on a curve EQ. Which comes with Cubase. And I think what we want to do is place it into average mode. And we'll go to static and match. So I'm going to play back this file. And it's kind of basically taking almost like an EQ fingerprint. And then we're going to click on take. Okay, let's play the other track. we see kind of different frequency ranges here. All right, so we'll stop that and we'll click on take. And now we want to match the spectrum. So we want to say we would like this one as the reference, the second one as a reference, and let's apply it to this one. So we're going to play this file again. So now we can come over here if you wanted to have those same sonic characteristics. So that's how you could take, you know, sonic characteristics from one track and apply it to another. All right, let's jump back to our live questions. Thanks for everyone for sending email questions in. You could always send them in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. All right. See Michael Pierce's revelation of the day on the direct routing, and he says that I feel stupid. So don't feel stupid. You learned it by coming to your Club Cubase live stream. So all right, Jeff Sabelski says on his May 5th concert he gets to bend notes on his oboe on The Composer is Dead. So Michael Pierce is literally about to open my template and change a bunch of stuff. So. All right, so a question from Jazzy Lamel. Hey, Greg, how do you find the test generator? So it's actually found under the tools plugins. So let's say if we want to just add an audio track, I'll just add a blank. And as an insert, this comes in so handy on a lot of things for testing. So just go, you see a test tone generator here. I'll just turn down. So we have sine waves, triangle, square. You could adjust the frequencies that you want. So you say, okay, I want this to be 10K, 2K, 440. You could type in particular frequencies. You could come over here, have a sawtooth. If you want to do sweeping. And here you could set kind of the amount from 60 to 10K, the duration. So you say, okay, I want this to be 2 seconds. And we could also have different noise. So if you want it to be pink, brown, blue, gray, or violet, you could now come and have your different noise generators built right in as well. So, but once again, just go to under tools, you'll see test generator. And it's great for gain staging and, you know, figuring out exactly where different tracks are maybe adding or taking gain away. You have a kind of a steady source instead of trying to come up with something. So. All right, so Daniela Tocan asks, synchronize footsteps and make it for the cut more easy to cut footsteps specific to this rhythm. Normal is that I do footsteps, compliant matching footsteps. I did not find a possibility in Cubase to make a rhythm template for them to orientation. So if you, let's say if we have footsteps, all right, so I'll just do a new project here. I may have some, see if I have footsteps as like a sound effect. All right, so let's say if I want it to be in 7/8, we just adjust that. All right. All right, so let's say we want this to be 7/8. Okay, now that I'm in 7/8, we could also set click patterns. So let's say I want this to be all right, let me just make this like 96 BPM. But I could change my click pattern here. So let's say I want 3 + 4. Okay, so now at this point, let's see if I have sound effects. I have some in. All right, so let's say if we have like something like that, maybe as a sound effects, let's drag that in. Okay, so now we're in 7/8. So let's say, and we listen to this. All right, so we have different elements here. So let's say we want to just take this and we'll imagine these are footsteps, but we'll come over to our quantize panel. And we're in 7/8. So let's say we want to quantize it to an 1/8 note grid. So now we could just take kind of the transients and have those, you know, quantize directly to the musical grid. So we could set this to even 1/8, 16th notes if you wanted to, or quarters. So at that point you could actually just choose to quantize, or if you want to get really creative with it, is let's take, you know, these particular sounds, we'll go into our hit points and let's say, okay, we'll have these as our hit points and we'll adjust our intensity up. Okay, and we'll create warp markers. And now that we go into our free warp tool, you know, we could now have everything snap. Just put it, so we'll put it in free warp, and now we could have every single event snap to the grid if you wanted to as well. So once you enable J, we could just say, okay, this is going to automatically just snap. So there's lots of stuff you can do for sound effects and kind of treat it in a more musical manner. So play around with that. All right, Darren Flake. All right. Sorry, just saw a question in my chat field, just jumped to me. All right, Darren Flake asks, what's the use of the summing mode on direct routing? So if we're in the mixer, we have this summing mode on, what that's going to do is to allow two different direct routing sources to sound at the same time. Without summing mode on, we could only send to one destination in direct routing, but with summing mode turned on, that allows us to send it up to 8 different destinations. Okay, Geekmaster asks, how do I add distortion, my brother, in Cubase? So there's all sorts of different ways of adding distortion. So let's say if we want to take something that is let's find something that's very clean. So something relatively clean. So I'll just take a bass part here. Activate this. So we obviously have distortion on guitars, but let's take our bass part here. All right, so if we want to add distortion in there, we have a whole distortion category. So if you want to do, just add So if you want some kind of classic fuzz, or if you want like something really good for kicks, and you have the grungelizer, which you could use for kind of add like record crackle, add hum at 50 or 60 cycles. Magneto 2. You have the tube. Quadrifuzz, which is a multi-band distortion, so multiple types of distortion. So you can choose between tape, tube, distortion, amp. Soft clipper as well, so if you want it's a little more subtle. And then you'll even have like VST amp rack, so if you want to just come over here, have like a classic Ampeg, and let's make it like an 810 SVT. So all sorts of great distortions that are built into Cubase for different types of functions. Okay, so Darren Flake asks, how does the VCA fader affect the buses or effect signal routed to VCA channel versus buses compared to buses? All right, so let's just add an example here. So let's take a look. So one of the things that you don't have with VCA faders is when you use a VCA fader, it's not going to alter the gain structure of the send. So let's say I'm here and I want to add a reverb to my snare top here. Okay, so we have that going on. So I want to take all of my drum tracks here. And I'm going to route them to a group channel. All right, let me just... All right, let me just change the routing here. Sorry, I don't think I got everything. Okay, so when I route these, I'll add a group here quickly. All right, so I'm going to select all the tracks here. And we'll go to our sends. And these will all go to our group. Let me just add. Okay, let me just make sure there's nothing. All right, so I'm going to turn off these effects here just so we can hear this. Okay, so now everything is going to my group. So I bring down that's going to affect the gain structure. But when we're using a VCA, so let me just see if I get to set one more time here, easily show this. All right, so that's not going to, so, you know, we can sum and affect the different sounds there, but when we want to adjust and send all the drums to VCA, let's say, instead, as we adjust the VCA fader, the actual VCA is not going to affect the gain relationship between the snare. So if we just solo the snare, we just unlink all these. That same amount of level is not affecting the gain stage in the snare. So the VCA we can use, it's not going to sum, but as we attenuate or add gain, it doesn't affect the level of that individual channel's send going into it. So whereas a group, if you raise and lower it, that could affect the gain structure of the audio going into that send. All right, Jeff Sabelski says we used a test generator for analog tape setup. So yeah, it used to be, that was when I worked at the studio many years ago. We always had to have a test tone tape, and that would have the test tone, like a 1K test tone that's recorded at a particular level, and then you have to calibrate the machine to do that. So, but yeah, it's a great way of calibrating gain on other devices as well. So you could definitely use it and spit it out to a tape machine and use it as a multi-channel oscillator as well. See, Jeff Zabelski says Pink Floyd Money's in 7/8. I think it's in 5/4. So, all right, you see Val has to head off. All right, so we see some like discussion on like the 7/8 metronome. So one of the things that you could do if you have to work with other musicians, and they are working in different meters, or just you need to have the meters subdivided in different ways. So we'll come here, let's create a signature track. Again, we're going to make it 7/8. So one of the beautiful things of the signature tracks in Cubase is we could have it just be, so we could have it do 7, but let's say at this point I want to do a different division. So we'll say, okay, we're going to do 7/8. But I want this to be, for this pattern, I want it to be 2 plus 5. And then we want that for 2 measures. And then I want 3 plus 4. So we could edit the click pattern. And let's say we're going to have, again, 7/8. And then we want 4 plus 3. And let's say we want 5 plus 2. So, and then once we got this, so we can say, okay, we're in 7/8, just straight 7. Then now we're going to have 3 plus 4. Now 4 plus 3. Now 5 plus 2. And the beauty of this also is if you're doing a composition based around this, you could just come over here and say we're going to set the left and right locators, go to your project menu to signature track, and then you could say you can turn this into an audio file or render the MIDI click between the left locators, and now you have MIDI events that are this, and you could just come over and change the pitch of those particular MIDI notes and have a composition that automatically fits the criteria of different downbeats and different divisions. All right, so we see question, my download manager isn't working. All right, so when you're accessing the download manager, make sure that you're actually, a lot of times when the download assistant isn't working, sometimes people won't be correctly signed in with their My Steinberg credentials. So make sure that you come over. So we'll just show this. All right, so make sure that you go to the upper right-hand corner here and make sure that you're actually signed in with your credentials there. So see, if it's booting up, check to make sure that you're logged in, and it could be sometimes logging out and then logging back in will do the trick for you as well. Okay, we have a question from inactive user. Where can I download the trial/test projects for Cubase 12 to 13 to open a session in my own Cubase, like the Austin Hole project, etc.? So I think we just go to the download manager. Let's select Cubase Pro 13. We'll select that and scroll down, and then demo project by Austin Hole right here. So there's different demo projects that you could use directly right there. So do it from the Steinberg download assistant. Okay, sorry, my chat field jumped. See, comment from Daniel Tocan says about 7-8 times. 7/8 is very common in specific use of film, so it's also huge in Rush music. But yeah, if you think the last 7/8 film thing that caught my ear was probably Wonder Woman 1984 with Hans Zimmer. There's a lot of great 7/8 stuff in that. All right, so we see from Daniela, we're going to get the time code to find the answer to my question more easy. So if you want to look through, I'm not sure if you're looking for like the timestamp where the question is, but we'll have that entered in later tonight. All right, so we see Hamo 1974 says Groove Agent 6 with question mark. So I saw someone else posting that, you know, Groove Agent 6 is coming next week or in 2 weeks. So not sure about that, but I don't think there's any Groove Agent announcements. So, all right. So we see from Jav, I'm utilizing my UR44 with Cubase 13, but I want to know how to use my audio inputs from my Onyx 24. How can I route them while still keeping my UR44 as my main interface? So probably you have to take the outputs from your Onyx and feed it into the UR44. So they're not going to work simultaneously with that. Okay, so you're not going to be able to, and I just see a follow-up, and how can I route them via USB and still keep my UR44? So you're not going to be able to. So you can't necessarily stack and utilize two USB audio interfaces. All right, so with that, I see that we are out of time. I want to thank everyone for all the great questions. Once again, we will not be having a live stream on Tuesday. We will follow up 1 week from today. I want to thank everyone for all the wonderful questions that they've asked. If you've learned a new tip or trick, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, I appreciate everyone taking time out of your day to learn some more about Steinberg products, and we'll see everyone next Friday. Everyone, please stay safe and healthy and make some great music this weekend. Take care.